Perfect. So welcome everyone. You are at an E4All, Entrepreneurship for All deep dive webinar. We do these every month. We try to give you really an in-depth, that's why we call it a deep dive, look at something that was too much for level 1 in your E4All cohort and classes. And I'm always trying to find topics that I think you really should know a lot about. And today, I went online in a Facebook or a LinkedIn group that I know, and I said, who knows a lot about email marketing and wants to teach a class for me? And Albert was one of the first people who raised his hand. He'll introduce himself and tell you a little bit more now. I'm Deborah Gallant. I'm the E4All Berkshire County Executive Director, and I run these monthly programs. So let me just go through a few slides, and then we're going to hand it off to Albert. First off, everyone who has ever seen me do anything for E4All knows that I always thank our sponsors, because all E4All programs are offered free of charge thanks to these very generous people. So thank you again. E4All, what is that? Albert's in Portland. He wants to open an E4All in Portland. No, he doesn't. But he wanted to know about it. So E4All helps underrepresented individuals successfully start and grow a business. We're in 15 different cities, mostly Massachusetts, but as I said, also Buffalo, Rhode Island, Arkansas, and Colorado. And over 700 businesses have been started by our alumni, and 70% are still active. We have these deep dives every month. It's usually the third Monday. Sometimes it's the second, sometimes it's the fourth, depends on the month. Next month, we have Aaron Whitcamper. Surveying your customers is not a one-shot deal. You all learned how to do surveying in your cohort. You probably thought, all right, I don't need to do that again. Wrong, you do still need to do it. So Aaron's gonna come back and help us think about how you continue to survey your customers to make sure you're always pleasing them. And in May 16th, we'll have a class on staying on track with your business strategy. Now, I'm gonna hand off to Albert, but I wanna make one note here is that the Cape Cod group, hang in till the very end. Kristen's there. Hi, Kristen. Kristen is going to take you all into a separate Zoom room for your quarterly meeting, and she'll drop that link into the chat in the last 10 minutes or so after the presentation. So Albert's going to go for about an hour. We always record these, and all of them are archived. If you're interested in any of our business building topics, we encourage you to go and check those out. We're going to record for the hour, and then we're turning the recording off, and we're going to do a Q&A, because you may want to say, hey, Albert, what do you think of my email? And show it to him and get the group to all contribute. And you might not want that immemorialized on a tape. So we won't record the end. We will only record the curriculum part. And I asked Albert, I said, are you willing to share your presentation? He goes, well, no, because I'm going to do show and tell, and I'm going to do demos and presentations. So we are not going to be sitting through a boring PowerPoint. We are going to have Albert Ideation. I think that's his name of his company. Is that right? It's a great name. And he's going to tell us everything we need to know about email marketing. And here's what I have to say about it is, if you think you know what's what in email marketing, it might have changed since you looked last. It changes really quickly. So I'm really delighted to hand it off to Albert from Portland, Oregon, Albert Ideation, who is going to tell us why small businesses really need email marketing and how to do it right to make money in your business. You're on.
All right. Thank you so much, Deborah, for that lovely introduction. And greetings, everyone, from lovely, sunny Portland, Oregon. Okay, so I don't know if you could tell, but it's not sunny. It's not sunny here very often. It's gray and rainy, but that's all right. That helps everything grow green and lush. So let's see. Welcome to this. I've been teaching people how to do various kinds of marketing probably all my life in a way. I started doing newsletters when I was about 12 years old with a mimeograph machine. I've always really enjoyed keeping people in the loop. I'm just going to make sure that my settings are, there we go. This should help. All right. And so, yeah, in the last 12 years or so, I've done a lot of teaching people around the country, mostly in the Pacific Northwest, about how to reach whoever they're trying to reach. I work with political candidates, um, restaurants, massage therapists, synagogues, you name it. I have worked with different organizations, also nonprofits. I was curious to hear from a couple of you whether you're already using email marketing currently. So maybe if you are, you can put something in the chat. That might be the simplest thing. Just give me a little summary in a sentence or two of like what you're up to, what product you're using, if you want to say that, and how it's going, that type of thing.
So you can just use the chat function to say, not doing email, want to do email. Yes, I'm doing it using MailChimp. Just let Albert know sort of your level of knowledge on this.
Yeah, and not everybody has to respond back. I'm fine with just a couple of you. I may end up using your, or, also if you want to mention what kind of business you have or cause, or if you're just doing something to promote your own brilliance in the world, that would be great too. Yeah, great.
E4All itself sends it from headquarters, and we also send it from each of the sites. And we're using MailChimp, though I'm a fanatic about Constant Contact, and I wish we used Constant Contact, but they like MailChimp.
Okay, great. Great. Okay, cool. All right, so yeah, because sometimes I end up coming to a class like this, and I'm in the company of like some serious marketers who have like 10 franchises around the country and who are extremely adept at what they're doing, and other times it's more like sort of the beginner folks. So it sounds like there's a little bit of a mix here. I'm going to stop letting people in. You do that.
I will do it.
Very good. A wellness startup. Cool. All right. Well, I'll just say that so for the past 12 years, as I mentioned, I've been teaching this type of class to people. And in all of that time, even though Deborah said that things have really changed a lot, there's a lot that has really stayed the same. I've been very surprised about it. I feel a little bit like I picked a good stock, and the stock just sort of keeps rising. It's not rising super fast, but it just keeps rising. And what I mean by that is the return on investment of using email marketing is $42 for every dollar spent. So that's the idea, is that you use it and it brings back rewards. And if you compare that to something like spending the same amount of time or money on social media, the average is much lower. And so over the years, I, like all of you, and like everybody else, has been super captivated by social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, what's not to like. But when it first started out, you were able to use your business page to attract people. Eventually, these free business pages that Facebook was giving us, they wanted to start monetizing that. And unless you started to pay into advertising, your business page was not seeing anything like what it originally saw. So there was a little bit of a bait and switch that happened there. I don't fault Facebook for how that unfolded, but at the same time, email marketing has just continued to be on this rise of, deliverability. If I sent an email, for instance, if I had all of your email addresses, some portion of you would open it, some portion of you would see it. Email is checked multiple times a day by people. For a while, it was thought that people were checking email 150 times a day. I don't know that any of you are doing that, but I'm probably up around there. So we know that it works. There are statistics that show it. I'm going to do a little bit of like a demonstration on what my experience of using email marketing is. And as I mentioned to Deborah, if you have questions, you're welcome to put them in the chat. She'll bring them up to me. If you really just feel like calling it out because you're seeing somewhere that you're curious about, you're also welcome just to call out to me and ask me a question while I'm demoing. But you can also, if you feel like just putting it in the chat or sending Deborah a message, she'll get it to me in the right time. So those are some things. I'm going to put something in the chat for you, just a couple of things. This is my website. There's a couple links there for constant contact if you want to try a trial out. And if you want to email me any of your newsletters that you're doing later on in the class, I can take a look at some of those and perhaps give you some feedback. So, but without further ado,
Albert, let me ask one sort of just sort of setup question for
Sure.
this class.
Yeah.
You compared email marketing return on investment to like social media or other kinds of advertising. Isn't email marketing by definition, though, really just a loyalty building, because people have to have given you their email address, so they have to know you already. So it's not really attracting new customers, which a Facebook page might attract a new customer, because if they haven't given you their email address, you can't email to them.
Right. Yeah, I'm a little stumbling over the terminology that you just used, but I would say that just when you're looking at that permission that you have to email somebody. So like if I'm going to email Lisa, there's a good chance that she'll see the email. If I post on my Facebook page that she has liked, there is very little chance that she'll see that. So that's kind of
but my I guess the thing that I'm getting at here is in terms of new customer acquisition is you can't, unless people are forwarding email, that email marketing really can't do that for you, because by definition you've already had a contact with them or you wouldn't have their email address.
Well, actually not necessarily. Well, yeah, as Christian mentioned, you could buy an email list. That's not really recommended. Well, there are some times when that's recommended, like when the only way to get the email addresses of the people in your industry is to buy a list. Sometimes that's acceptable, but most times it's really frowned upon because you don't have permission to write them, and that's considered spamming. But right, so as Emily mentioned, people can get on your list via your website. They can get on your list from seeing a text to join type of thing, QR code. There's many, many different ways that a person can end up joining your list without you having ever met them. There's hundreds of them. So I have a whole sort of presentation that's just about the 60 different ways to build your list. And some of them are, having a sign up link, like the sign up link that I posted in the chat. If you go to that, I'm going to go ahead and start sharing screen so I can show you some of what I want to show you. So yeah, if I happen to go into, let's see, well, if I go into a sign up form, a person might have multiple ways of coming in. If I come to a website, I was just on a website yesterday of a person who just has all these different funnels, like you can come in and say, oh, I want to get this download, or I want to just contact you. And then there's a checkbox that says, I want to join your list. So
yeah, I can see in the source column on your contacts, it tells how they found you, how they got on the list. Right.
Right. So that is something that I wanted to just show off right off the bat was, here are people who have come into my list recently. This person just today, signed up for a list. And this person I added, this person came in from a pop-up on a website. This one came in through a website sign-up form. So there's a few different ways that people are coming onto my list. And I wanted to show you and I, before people got here, were talking about kind of open rates. And you were saying how once upon a time, wasn't it great when you could get a 20% open rate? And I just wanted to show you like what kind of open rates I'm personally getting. Here is a 26% open rate for my business newsletter, went out to about 5,000 people. This is a personal newsletter that I send out, and that got 32%. And then I've got one down here. Let's see. So this is a a group that I send to that we're working on getting rid of gas-powered leaf blowers. And so that's a 41% open rate. And generally for this topic of the 1,500 people that I'm sending to, if I go back to previous newsletters on that topic, I'm getting even a higher open rate. Here's one, for instance, 58%. So depending on who you're sending what to, can really change the open rate. Well, I wanted to show you just briefly like how easy it is to use one of these programs. I use Constant Contact. You could be using, there's 100 different newsletter creation programs out there. I signed up with Constant Contact as a partner about 12 years ago, which, by the way, is also a business, a side business. If you're in marketing or anything sort of related to marketing, like PR or graphic design or anything like that, being a partner for Constant Contact or one of the other things like Active Campaign has a program as well. So as a partner in this world, I get a free account, and I also get a revenue share when somebody signs up for an account and things like that. So that's just something to know about. Like if you're looking for a side hustle, you're welcome to email me and ask me questions about that if you want. So basically, when I come into
well, Albert, can I ask one question? Because
sure. Go ahead, Deborah.
I think not everyone's starting in the same place. Why can't I just send it out of my email? I mean, why do I need this system?
Sure. Okay. So if I'm using, and this is my Gmail account, and if I compose an email, and yes, I could do that. I could be sending to, I think it's up to 100 people per email. When you use your Gmail account or Hotmail account or whatever, your email account sort of deteriorates over time. When you're using a program like I'm showing you, an email service provider, you are able to get the sort of trust from the email service provider's servers are creating like a trust relationship between your email and the people who you're sending to. When you're using your Gmail account, you don't get that same benefit. And so after time, you start seeing that your email starts going into people's trash folder or it goes into their spam folder. Now that can happen also with me sending out via Constant Contact, but it tends to over time become a more trusted source. And so that is why people use email service providers. Plus, if I send out an email to somebody, and let's say I send to 100 people, the only way for them to unsubscribe from my newsletter is to write me back and say, hey, get me off of here. Whereas with sending to an email service provider, there's a way, for instance, here's one from a local retreat center. These are a client of mine. So I can click right here where it says unsubscribe, and then I don't have to, then I'm off the list, and it's just sort of a one-stop shop in that respect.
Mike has a question. Mike, you want to unmute and ask?
Yeah, thanks, Deborah. Can you, Albert, talk a little more about that concept of deterioration? If I'm sending people emails, is that dependent on the number of people that one email goes to, or just the number of emails I'm sending to one person? I don't quite understand that. I haven't found that to be the case.
I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question again?
You talked about the deterioration of the relationship between your email and.
Got it. Yeah. So so if I'm sending, let's say for a long time, I was using my Gmail account to send out, 500 emails to a group of 500 people. So I would do 5 different emails like that. And then I started to notice that people weren't getting my emails. And what was happening is they were starting to go into people's spam folders. And so even to this day, the email address that I use, albertkaufman@gmail.com, is one that I've been using for a long time. They send the sendability, the accuracy that if I send an email to you using that address, that it's actually going to go to you, even though it's a personal interaction. Like if I'm emailing Deborah, there's a likelihood that that's going to end up, because I was using it so heavily, it's going to end up in somebody's spam folder.
Is that because you were sending one email that went to 100 people, or each of those 5 emails went to 100 people?
Yes.
As opposed to you'd sent 500 individual emails?
I believe so. I believe that's how it works. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's clear.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks,
and
Mike.
what you're paying for when you pay for an email service provider, there's a lot of stuff that you're paying for. I mean, you're paying for tech support. You're paying for this whole idea of creating a trusted relationship, that like Constant Contact is, a trusted entity, where if they're sending out 10,000 emails via their servers, the internet says, okay, they are a trusted sender. We're going to make sure that those go where they're supposed to be going. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that, you get 100%, of those emails land where they're supposed to. But it's the email itself that you're sending from is authenticated. There's a setting within Constant Contact. I'll just show you that, where you click on, like, I want to authenticate my email. That's a little bit obscure, but it's right here. So right now it's on. I can turn that off. And that basically says to Constant Contact, this email address that I'm using to send is authenticated. And that's a whole avenue of important knowledge that there are further things that you can do where you can make your email, more precious. Like one of them is not using a Gmail account or a Hotmail account or a Yahoo account, but instead using a address that is attached to your own personal domain. So that's a recommendation if you haven't done that yet, is to, get yourself either. You don't even have to have a website to have a domain. So like, for instance, I own a website called, albertkaufman.com, for instance. And I do have an address, albert@albertkaufman.com. Now, I don't even need the website to be up and running to use that address. I just have to set up the address. So that's something to consider.
Okay, I'm just going to add a few notes on this.
Sure.
It's legally you're only allowed to send to people who've given you permission, and you will be asked every time you put contacts in or they sign up in one of these systems. So it gets you through one phase of being legal, and it also lets them automatically self-unsubscribe, which is another piece of the CAN spam legislation from Congress. So MailChimp, I believe, is free up to a certain number of contacts. Constant Contact, I actually think, has even the lowest number. There is a charge for it, but it's not substantial. But the reality is the things that you can do to make it look professional in a professional email system and being compliant with the law are really make it worth it for even really a small business. I actually had somebody have to shame me into it almost 15 years ago. It's like, stop sending it out of your own email. Right. This is it makes you come up to the next level of professionalism, and you can create much prettier, more personalized and specialized emails. So I'm sorry, Albert, now you can take it away.
Good. I appreciate your input. So when I come to choosing a campaign, these are the different choices that I get. I can create an email. I can create an email automation series. So for any of you who went to the link that I sent to my website or to my sign up link, you'll see a number of different choices of things you could choose. And from there, you might receive, a welcome email. That's called an automation. You might, if you signed up for the birthday list, you would get an email on your birthday. If you signed up for Song a Day, I have a series that goes for 252 days, a different song each day. Social posts, I can use this program to promote to social, to 4 different things: LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. I can create Facebook ads from here. I can create events. Like, this is sort of like Eventbrite, but it's a little bit more robust, but it's similar. And then I can create a survey, like a SurveyMonkey type of thing. I can create landing pages, and I can show you some of those if you want. And then there's also a program where I can actually just create a whole website from within this program. But mostly people come in here and start creating an email. So somebody shout out a holiday.
Christmas.
What was that, Christmas?
Christmas.
You got it. So here's the different templates that come up for Christmas. So I'm going to pick this one. And I personally, I'm super into doing, as you saw, there was a St. Patty's Day email that I just sent recently. And I, of course, made the cardinal sin of calling it St. Patty's, P-A-T-T-Y. My brother gave me a whole bunch of grief about that. The first thing I do is I'll just, I'll give it a title. This is just an internal title for me. And then the most important thing about email marketing is the subject line. Here's the subject line. And there's a little link here that tells me what are some email recommendations. They're looking through my emails in the past to see what I've done in the past. I don't even know what these things, where they're getting any of this information from. But anyway, the important thing is that it's short, that it's pithy, that it's 6 to 10 words is sort of recommended. Limited use of emojis. You've got like a little emoji thing here, that you can use.
Albert, what do you think about personalizing?
I think the jury's out on that. It's possibly like a little bit to do with age and what type of group you're writing to, but you can use this little personalization thing here and say, you can say you're invited so-and-so to something. But personally, I don't tend to use this personalization feature here, but I will show you where I do use personalization. So let's say I'm going to use this subject line. Maybe I'm putting in an emoji. The next thing that's important is this pre-header, and that is if you look up here, it says, let's get you ready for 2022, and then it follows with, will you join us? Now, this little bit of text, it's also known as teaser text, because once you go into the email, this goes away. So it's like you're making a little bit of a conversation in the person's inbox, but that disappears once you actually enter the email. And then I would say next to the subject line, very close second, is the from name. And many of us, I think, are tempted to put in, marketing department or whatever. And that's a real no-no. You really want to put a person's name in there, or, something like Albert at the marketing department. And you can see up here what the preview looks like. And that's the main thing. If a person, there's a 2 by 2 by 2 rule. The idea is you have 2 words and 2 seconds for a person to decide whether to open your email or not. And this little combo right here really is about what you have. Now, I've never thought about this before, but actually, there's no reason why this couldn't be the combo punch. I've never thought about that before, but I'm going to give this a try. That's part of marketing too, is like when you play with these tools, you end up coming up with things that you've never seen before. So normally this is where you're name goes, but there's no reason why text couldn't go in here and text couldn't go in here, you know? Just playing around here, you know, something like that.
I also use from like from your friends at E4All or from the gang at, you know, whatever. So it feels a little bit more friendly. Just, and also they may not know who Albert Kaufman is. So, you know, or they might not know who Deborah Gallen is. That's why I like to do that.
Yeah. So right here also, these are very important too, where the email is coming from, because a person will see the email address in their, let's say they're using Outlook, this will show up. So, you know, having something noticeable or memorable, you know, versus just like info at, you know, such and such company. So just some things to think about there. So now you can see I've got my from. Now this isn't really recommended. Your name should go here, but I'm now that I'm so happy I've come up with a new idea, I'm going to hold on to it. All right, so now I'm into the email. You can see there's a bunch of different, these are called blocks, and I can do things like come in here and I can change the background. I can have no pattern. I can get rid of the background altogether and, you know, change the background color. I could put snow in here. You can actually put in a picture, you know, of whatever you want. You can upload a picture and have that be the background. So that's something to know about. And then you can also do things like globally change your text, for instance. I tend to personally like black text. I tend to like using this as the font for links. You can do that. You can also change, let's say you have buttons inside your email.
Albert, I know that these systems are all adjustable, right? So that it's going to look different on a phone than it will on a computer. So when you pick a 16-point font, it's not going to look 16 points when it's on a phone, right? It automatically rescales everything. Is that correct?
I recommend that people use 14 to 16 point. And when someone uses a 12-point font and I look at it on my phone, it's very hard for me to read. When I'm seeing a 14 to 16-point font, it's easier for me to read. That's been my experience. So also within here, you have things like you can use various building blocks to do things. You can actually go forward and backwards, which is nice. You can do things like add, right off the bat, this is one of the things that I tend to do, is I add not social share follow buttons. These are follow buttons. So if I had this listed in here and a person clicked on this Facebook link, they would actually go to my Facebook page or my Pinterest page or my Twitter page. Instead, I will use let's see. Oh, wow. Yeah, this is one of the things that happens when you're using programs is, so these are social follow buttons. These are social share buttons, and that's the one that I usually put at the top, which looks more like this. Now, if a person clicks on this when they are following me, I'm sorry, if they click on one of these, then they're able to share this newsletter on social media. So if anyone doesn't understand the distinction here, let me know. But basically, let's see. So if I just preview this.
So if I'm understanding this right, the first round lets them share it, and the bottom one has them go to your social page.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
And you asked about the difference in the look and feel on a mobile versus desktop. And so this is a nice little thing that allows you to look at both. So you can see how things also, so here's the desktop version of this, and then here's the mobile version of this. You can see how things stack on top of one another. You can also send yourself a preview and
highly recommended. Send it to someone else and have them check all your links too.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm just going to get rid of this. So here's just a bit of text. First thing that I tend to do is put in a greeting tag. And so that's simply hello, first name, comma, and then, something else here. So, for this one, I would say, Merry Christmas.
So just so you know, our little completely informal poll said people do not like to see their name in the subject line. It feels like it's spammy.
Yeah, I feel similarly. But this is where I would put the
right in there. It makes sense.
Yeah. And so another thing that I also might recommend putting above is this little piece here, view as a web page. And what that does is it throws in a little bit of text that a person then, if they see this, they can click on it and it opens up a web browser. So that's just something also that you should know about. So here I've got, hello, and then there's, I'm going to follow that with text, and then, thank you for whatever. And then, there's a few other things to know about. There are dividers, those are useful. There's putting a video into the email. That's a great thing to add in. Video, also you should know if you add a video and you let people know in the subject line that you're adding a video and you use the actual word video, it increases the open rate greatly. So the word video is a big helper. The word Facebook, is a big helper. Using odd numbers in your subject line, so things like 3 ways to manage, personal problems, or 7 tips for how to, get the best cake icing for Christmas. Whatever.
All right. So Albert, let's talk philosophy for a second. I'm
Sure.
pretty sure everyone who's on this call can figure out how to build using one of these WYSIWYG editors. They're pretty easy, both in MailChimp and in all the other systems. How often should you send them? What kind of content should somebody be thinking that they should put in there? And how are they using it? Like you sent out a St. Patrick's Day. I don't know. I'm Jewish. I run E4All in Berkshire County. Why would I send a St. Patrick's Day? Should I just do monthly newsletters? What's the expectation? Let's talk about best practices in terms of content, not pissing people off. Like we all have been on lists of people who send to us too often. What's some standard ways to think about this?
Before we go there, I am going to show one more feature. Because I do think it's important that people see what some of this can do. So I'll come to your questions in a second. So this is just the ability to add a blog post that you have, for instance, into a newsletter. And though you might think that these things are all the same, this is actually a very useful feature. And you should look for it no matter what program you're using. So you get a chance to add a picture, text, and things like that. So, all right, back to your question. So how often to send?
And what should we be sending? Like, there's a stained glass company. There's an art studio. We have Captain Rich who runs cruises. How often should they be thinking that they're sending email?
Well, again, it is a little bit specific to who you are sending to and who is sending. So my general rule of thumb is to send no less than once a month. But if you're sending to a group of people about a reunion that's coming up, you might be sending every month to get people ready and here's how to make your hotel reservations. But leading up to the event, for the month leading up to the event, you might be sending something every week. You might be sending something every day. It really depends. But so generally, I tend to send at least once a month to pretty much everyone on my list. And then there are some special occasions, like I just mentioned. but definitely be thinking about that. And what helps me think about it is putting it out there on a particular day of the month, or creating a calendar for yourself. And within this program, there is a calendar function, so you can, like an editorial calendar. I believe it's just back in here somewhere. Yeah, so I can look and say, okay, on this day I sent this newsletter. I can see when the last ones I sent were. I can also schedule things for the future. And then you could also, if you have an account, you can add other users and people can be working together so that you are not stepping on each other's toes, or you're doing a kind of sort of combined effort. And sometimes organizations, for instance, like a synagogue, might have 4 different newsletters that are going out to different people, and 4 different people that are working on them. So it can get a little bit confusing unless you're organizing yourself.
Rich, you have a question?
Rich,
you're still muted, Rich.
We have about 18 people, maybe 14 e-for-allers and stuff. And I kind of want to throw out some of my thoughts on my business, and just get some feedback from him to say yes, no, it's good, and hopefully that will maybe stimulate some ideas on everybody else in here. So I have a seasonal business. It's May through, let's say, October. Okay, it's good weather. My shoulder season, May, June, September, October, is slow. My summer season is crazy. So in my thought process, I would want to be sending out something, especially in my shoulder systems, to increase business, increase traffic. I might be throwing out some specials, sign up here and 10% discount, that sort of thing, just to get some more business in those 2 shoulder areas. Maybe I'll do it once a week, because it's only going to last 7 or 8 weeks, my shoulder season. In my off season, I'm assuming that I would only send stuff out when something important or very interested pertaining to the business or the products I offer comes up. And I want to tell all my associates, let's say, or my customers, that something's happening. So it kind of keeps them in tune with me. It kind of establishes a relationship. Okay. So just thinking about it now, that's kind of how I would do it. Maybe during the 2 months in the summer, July and August, maybe I do the min once a month, but right then I don't have 2 seconds
Rich,
to do anything.
I think yours makes a lot of sense, what you're saying for a seasonal business. I'm thinking more of somebody who doesn't have a seasonal business, right? And so Mike is a consultant, right? There's not a season for that. So how often do you want to be in front of people so you're making a good impression, but not bugging them if there's no urgency around? Like, you're very time delimited. If I want to book for 4th of July weekend, if I don't book ahead of time, I'm out of luck, Right.
Well, it's interesting, for one thing, look at what you have been doing. How's that working? So it's a constant sort of like thinking about it and adjusting. And this is always not, you never really ever, I don't think, land on like the perfect formula. You're just kind of always tweaking. You're looking at the results of what you got. I showed you sort of some results of marketing that I've done in the last month or so. I look at those and I go, okay, well, gosh, that got such a higher open rate. Why was that? Is it the subject line? Is it the time of year? And so you're just kind of always tweaking. In terms of like, if you ever feel like you don't have something to say, you're probably not looking at it correctly. Like, you really could easily, everybody here, be sending out something once a month. There are tips. There's giving people encouragement. There's reminding, it's all about reminding people that you exist, really, and getting people to be mentioning you when the question of X business comes up. When I'm at a party and someone says, "Oh, I'm looking for a realtor," I remember who I know from the newsletters that I get, who my realtor people are and what they're up to and what the market is like and that type of thing. I remember like who's making knishes because I get a newsletter from a couple of food carts. And I know like what specials are happening and stuff. So it's a lot about just reminding people you exist, and figuring out kind of clever ways to do it. And there's tons of ways to do it. I mean, for your business, you could be just always, it sounded like it was lawn related. Is that right? Like,
no, Rich runs a boat.
Boats, charter boats.
Oh, boats. Okay. So I mean, pictures. That's another thing we didn't really talk about much, but like pictures paint 1,000 words. So it's, photos of past experiences. It's, collecting testimonials from people and running those. It's video, video of a recent trip and like why it's so special to be out on the boat and how exciting it is and that type of thing, I think for a business like that, it's really there's the sky's the limit or the ocean's the limit for the kinds of things that you can be saying. And and it's interesting too, because like a business like that, I can imagine that you're super busy at certain times and you're feeling like, why should I market? Because I'm successful. And I have many businesses that are too busy to even consider it. And I'm like, no, you really should be marketing because gosh, maybe a pandemic will come up, or maybe something else. And, email just gets through no matter what the situation is. You could have like we had wildfires here for 10 days in a row. And I was telling my business clients, they're like, oh my God, like there's no reason for me to send anything out. And it's like, people are home. They're reading their email. They're stuck inside right now. So there shouldn't ever be a time when you're not able to think of things to promote your business. And that's also a thing to do is to like keep something handy so that you can keep notes. Oh, I had a good idea. Like we went out and we saw a whale. Boom, put the whale photo in the next newsletter.
Rich, what do you want to ask?
Yeah, I'm not, I got plenty of material. I was just going for, the times, what would drive me, what type of an event, either on my business or any of these other businesses would drive people to put something out there, like Debbie said, especially year-round businesses, year-round consultants, consulting. You're not going to have a picture of a person saying, "Oh, thank you very much for giving me that speech," or whatever. So those types of things are hard. I think the one thing, Albert, that I really can walk away from this because I'm applying it to a couple of other things I'm involved in is the open rate in looking at your history.
Yeah.
And so, like you said, if all of a sudden you got a 45%er, you're saying to yourself, what did that? Did I put a video in it or, that sort of thing? I think that's a very good point on these programs like Constant Contact. They give you that ability to get constructive feedback. So yeah, thank you.
And you can get that. Marketing is about measuring. If you're not measuring, you're not marketing. That's what some people say. And so you can get statistics on any of these programs that you use. You can look, I can show you if you're interested in Facebook, you can look at your business page and you can look at Insights, it's called, and you can see what was my best post for my business page. What did that lead to? You can look at Google Analytics for your website and see how many people are coming to visit. You can look at Instagram. There's ways to find out how many people are looking at your Instagram posts. There's Twitter, same thing. Everything is measurable. It's not always super clear about how to find the information, but it's there. And so that also can help guide you to, what that I am doing is successful, so I should do more of that,
And in terms of these Constant Contact and MailChimp are also helpful in that. So let's say, Rich, you send on a Thursday at 4:00. but you're not getting the opens, it'll say, based on the history of your emails, you'd be better off Monday at 11, or, you know, something like that. So it actually learns based on everybody's email and your email, and will suggest the best times.
Mm-hmm. There's actually also, not every program is using this, but it is out there. There is AI is starting to be attached to all of this, artificial intelligence. And so there are a few programs where you'll send to your list. And then the next time you send to the list, it'll say, do you want to send to the person when at the same time as the time that they opened it the last time? So that's kind of clever. And then there's another, in Constant Contact, there's an aspect that I think we all used to do manually, which is send to non-openers. So let's say I send to all of you a newsletter today at 2 o'clock my time, which is in 8 minutes. And then, you know, some portion of you open it within the next 24 hours, which is when most people open an email, is within 20. Actually, most people open it quicker than that, but let's say the first 24 hours. Then you can set a time for 3 days from now and say, send to non-openers. And so anyone that didn't open the email, and what does it mean when someone opens the email? I could talk about that in a second. But let's say I see, you know, out of 4,000 people, 3,000 people didn't open it. I could send to them again. And then another subset of that group will open it. And so you can increase your reach. And that's one of those things where, you know, is it worth it? I don't do it with every email, but I do it with most of the emails that I send. And what it means when something is open is if I send you the email and you click on it, obviously you've opened it, but also if it just shows up in your inbox and it goes from, you know, not having been looked at to read, there's a little pixel within each email that is hidden, that if that thing kind of gets triggered by some action on your part as the recipient, that means it's open. Now, Apple Mail is changing the game. They are preventing that from that like little equation from happening the way it's been happening forever. I don't know exactly all the ins and outs of it, but it is affecting everybody's open rates. So open rates will probably go down because of that, but it still makes sense to use this kind of marketing.
Albert, do you find that any of your clients, and I know you have lots of different categories, are successful at actually doing direct sales from email? Because I have not seen people sell event tickets or sell products that it might send them back to their website, or it might get them to the social media, or it might get them to pick the phone up and ask you about it. But this is just my experience. I wonder if you have a different experience.
So I have everything from people selling Japanese matcha sets to lots of events. And I think it's working for people. I think I wouldn't have so many people still continuing to use it if it wasn't having the desired effect. It doesn't always work. Like I'll have a deep dive class that I teach every couple of months. And sometimes I get 5 people to sign up and sometimes I get no people to sign up. So, you know, I don't know that that's necessarily the tool that I'm using. It could potentially be how I'm using it. It might be the time of year. But I think, you know, the fact that if I send an email out and I get a 20% open rate, that means out of 1,000 people, 200 people, you know, or 2,500 people are opening it, or 200 people are opening it. You know, that's eyeballs. What they decide to do with the information really probably has more to do with how much they trust me and how much they like me, to be honest. You know, it's a lot about likability, who people decide to work with. You know, there's 10 real estate agents that I can think of that I know. Am I going to work with the person who's, you know, who I like hanging out with, or am I going to work with the person, you know, a different person? Same thing with an auto body shop. You know, I might get an estimate for $2,500 from one place and another one for $3,500 from another place. But the second one, offered me a cup of tea while I was sitting there. So,
Albert, as a guy who does this for other people for
Yeah.
their living, do you think it's possible for a micro business, a 1 or 2 person business, to really outsource and have somebody else capture the voice of their business? Because I think what you're saying is there's a personality that you're going to have connection with your audience.
Right.
Doesn't that have to authentically be you?
Right. Well, there are, there are professionals that you can hire that there's actually more and more programs that you can actually use that can sound very much like you. I have one colleague who used a program, I forget what it's called right now, but he sent out an email, from him, and I read it, and I was like, oh, there's Ken. And at the end, he admitted that actually he hadn't written any of it, that the program had gone through all of his previous emails and had figured out, he gave it some prompt, but basically it created him. Now, you brought up a really good point, and I think it's very important in terms of strategy, in terms of becoming likable, in terms of connecting with your audience, that you put yourself into the newsletter, that you put yourself into your marketing. I see a lot of people talking about, the industry or statistics or things that are outside themselves. What I much prefer is to hear about how the person's life is going. I know it's not for everybody, but to say, hey, it's Albert, and I just went to the East Coast and visited my family, and here's a picture of me in the airport, or here's the carpet from the Portland airport, which is a big thing for us. And showing some personality and showing some heart. To be honest, that's the advantage that you as small business people have over IBM or McDonald's. McDonald's cannot say, hi, Jim, it's Albert. I'm coming to you from my bedroom in Portland, Oregon, and the cat, just fell off the table. Like, McDonald's can't do that, but you can. And so, I'm not encouraging you to be silly, but I'm encouraging you to be real. And that's the advantage that small businesses have over larger businesses. And this is a great format to do that, whether it's video, an email newsletter, social media too. Social media, I think, is a little bit trickier because what you say can kind of end up bouncing around all over the place. I mean, partly you want it to do that. But if you end up being, showing a side of yourself that you're not necessarily wanting the whole world to see, but you're wanting your fans to see, that's something to consider. But that is something that I try to encourage people to do. I also have a mentor who I've been following for years. His name is Michael Katz. His company is called Blue Penguin Development. He's in Waltham, Massachusetts, or somewhere near Boston. And he just wrote a newsletter out today that just really reminded me of like how important it is to just put yourself into the marketing that you're doing. Tell people that, something about your life, and you're a real person. You're like them, in some way, or even just that you are you. And I think that's really important for, oh, great.
Miguelina, that is such a small world. So here's what I'd like to do. I see Monica and Candace, their hand up, and I absolutely want to get to you. I want to see if Albert wants to make any last sort of summation or things you want to share wisdom about. I want to stop the recording, and then I really want to roll our sleeves up and talk to each other about how we all use email marketing. Oh, I'll roll my sleeves up too. Okay, so Albert, you have any parting remarks for the recording?
Well, I want to show you one thing that is on my website, just as a tool that people can use. So just give me a moment. Okay, so this is my website. And this is the thing that I think I want to share with you. This is if you are just getting started with building your list, or if you're wanting to increase your list, there's some ideas here about how to do that. And it's a couple of steps. Basically, exporting all of your contacts into an Excel spreadsheet, segmenting your list, Here are some ideas, what happens when you do segment your list. And then I've got some videos on here as well. And then I also have ways to sign up for my newsletter. But this is a process that I run everybody that I work with through, because most people haven't considered all the different people that are in their universe. And I will share that with you in the chat. And yeah, it's been great to present to you today. I'm happy to continue with some questions. And
all right, I'm going to stop recording.